Let's see here. Hey, what's happening? You are live with the Toe Bugs. I am joined today with Phil from Hondo Boots. Give it up for Phil.
Ooh.
You got Jeremiah Craig and Nate from Cecil Boot Company.
What's happening?
What's going on, guys?
Not much. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Good.
Hot, but I'm doing well.
Yes,
Yeah, what's the temperature over there right now?
It was 98 today.
Ugh. Yeah, Maryland, we're getting a little bit of a hot flash over here. It was 95, but it felt like 101, something like that.
Yeah.
Same up here in Boston, 94.
Mm.
Wow.
Yep.
You guys aren't going to believe this, but El Paso didn't make it even to the 80s today.
Whoa, I've been robbed.
We've been having some odd thunderstorms, and it stayed in the 70s all day today.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's nuts.
And El Paso can get like the surface of the sun.
Yeah. But instead, Seattle has it. So.
That's awesome.
Wow.
You said lots of rain, right?
Yeah, it's been raining cats and dogs since Sunday because of this hurricane that hit the Pacific coast. And then that comes right up to El Paso.
Yeah. Hey, Mullen, what's up, man? How you doing? Mark Dotson, what's happening, buddy? All right, so today we thought an interesting topic would be to go over heel and toe styles and shapes and kind of compare the terminology that different boot companies refer to them as. I know a lot of people will ask, what exactly is a J toe or what's a 5-toe with Lucchese or whatever. So we're going to try to hit on as many brands as we can and correlate the different toe shapes together and what they're called, as well as heel styles.
Can we complain a little bit too about it?
Absolutely. I fully plan on it. So, so it can get confusing and kind of silly sometimes, in my opinion. But
there's very few, it seems like, categories where you have some agreement. And I think Phil made a really good point earlier before we started, where you've got kind of a J, R, and maybe one or two others where you have kind of some consistent agreement, but not very many. You've got a couple of different alphabetical terms, numbers. Really, the way that it seems to be more consistent is how you describe it, right? Semi-round, round, round, narrow, narrow round. Those kind of things are a little bit more consistent across the companies.
Yeah.
I think for a good while, everyone settled on what Justin called them. And you had your own numbers or your own codes for your own toe, but your clients, the stores, were calling off the traditional Justin letter. I think Justin's the one with the J, the R, and the U. So for a while, they were the trendsetters and they were the brand,
Mm-hmm. Yep. So, Phil, let me ask you, on your website, you've got them listed as numerical values. You've got a 1-toe, a 2-toe, a 5-toe, what have you. As well as on the heels, you have them numbered.
Yep.
What made you decide to go that route on your website as opposed to J-toe, R-toe, U-toe?
Oh, those toes, they're more like from late 60s, early 70s, and then we've never touched them again.
Okay.
And went to numeric order from sharp to round is pretty much it. And in numeric order from flat to tall. And then the R toe was, it came a little later for our lineup, or maybe in the history of cowboy boots. So even though we had a toe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, where 5 was our U toe, and 1 was our original pinpoint toe. Then the medium round came and we had to squeeze it between the 3 and the 4, and we called it 8. So it's not a perfect science. But then we picked up when the square toes came on the scene, then we picked up with 11, 10, 11, 12. Our 12 is the standard real wide flat front toe that most boots have. And our 11 is closer to what we would call the French toe. And our
Mhm.
10 is like your bronc rider boot. It's just a little square and
Yeah.
it's kind of round, the like a little bulb.
Yeah. Did you
And so
mention the W?
The W is something I do want to talk about. I don't know.
Okay.
I didn't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but it comes from the old alphabetic. J for pinpoint, R for medium round, U for the roundest that people knew at the time. And then in the 90s, before the square toe became a thing, there was a fad that was called the W toe. And the W toe was a very, very round toe, much more than a U toe, which is our 5-toe. So a 5-toe or a U toe is a bit more of a streamlined round toe, whereas the W is just like a perfect circle in the front. But that's not all. The W toe has a big spring in the front. So whereas the 5-toe is a little bit flatter to the sidewalk, this quite a bit of a spring. And this was super popular in the 90s until about the year 2000, and then it died out pretty quickly. And the broad square one completely took over.
Yeah.
So this, we still make a sample every once in a while, and we still get fill-ins and orders every once in a while, but it's become a very minimal toe for any boot company.
Yeah.
I think I found one when we were on tour at Idaho Cowboy Supply with the 8506, but everywhere else I don't think I ever saw another as wide round toe as that W toe other than the Idaho Cowboy Supply.
In our history of releasing toes, we released the W very reluctantly. It took us years to feel the pressure from the stores and the salesmen, and then we said, okay, what the heck? Because it just kind of looked ugly to us. Sometimes get your personal preference gets in the way of doing business the right way. And then our 12-toe, our big old square toe, wide square toe, we made that one very reluctantly too.
Yeah.
For very similar reasons.
Yeah.
But if we hadn't, that would have been 60% of our business during the last 20 years.
Yeah. So how long did you say the W toe was kind of
It was around
popular?
these, like from maybe 95 to the year 2000. People were going head over heels for it.
Yeah.
For a little ugly toe.
So one thing, kind of going off topic here, but one thing that gets brought up all the time on social media is, there's a lot of people that hate the wide square toes, and I understand, and that's cool, but they'll call it, hey, it's just a fad. And I'm like, well, it's been around for, over 20 years now. I don't know.
It's been the
to me, that's too long to be considered a fad. I think maybe that W toe at 5 years, you might get away with calling that a fad, but
it definitely was.
Yeah. So, people are totally entitled to their own opinion, and I get it that the wide square toe is kind of an extreme look, and some people like it and some don't. But in my opinion, it's at this point, it's not a fad because it's just been around for too long.
It seems to be purists, like people that are looking at, boots from the 60s, 70s, 80s, early 90s. Even in some of these other companies, you see the wide round toe, or what they call a roper toe in some companies that he's discussing. But the square toe, you're right. It's been a persistent thing, and I don't see it fading away anytime soon.
Yeah, I don't really either. Any boot store you go into, it's 90% of what they got on the shelves, or at least any of them around here. I don't know. I haven't been to any out of state, but
never going to go away because that broad square toe is arguably the most comfortable. I mean, it simply gives you that space for your toe. So it's just not going to go anywhere. The U-toe could make a comeback, and then you'd have like a 50-50 sort of story. But the simple fact that it offers that comfort is like a cushion insole is never going to go away. I think the broad square is never going to go away because it's comfort.
That's a really great point. And I think part of the reason is because a lot of the people who are kind of getting into boots now might not necessarily understand the concept of a double E or a triple E, whereas the toe box of a square toe allows people that might have a wider foot, which I think probably happens more times than we realize, to fit into a boot that is true to fit like a sneaker.
Yeah.
You know, where you don't have the restrictions of a tight toe box and a tight leather that needs to be pulled down across a similar shape. So yeah, I agree with you.
I wear a half size smaller in my Hondo square toe, in my broad square toe.
Yeah.
Because I have wide feet and I squeeze them into a D width. I like that snug feeling. So in my case, I go down a whole half size when it grows by that much.
Yeah, I have Lucchese 9Ds that I wear and everything else on my 9EE.
Yeah, I agree with you. I was kind of reluctant about the wide square toe until I tried them on. And then I was like, maybe they don't look so bad, you know, because man, these are comfortable.
Yep, I felt the same way. I'm not attracted to the look at all. And I think that extra stitch doesn't really do anything, like, except for just to provide something else to look at.
Yeah.
But then when you try them on, it's like, I understand it. I get it. It makes sense now. All right.
Yeah.
I'll just get over myself now.
I remember that video you made a long time ago about them and talking about driving on a road trip, you know, and having all that extra room and on your toes, you know, and I couldn't agree more. So, all right, well, let's get off of that because that's kind of off topic. So back to the topic at hand. So we've kind of gone over the Hondo toe styles and heel styles and toe shapes. Why don't we go to Lucchese next? I know that's another big popular one. Cecil.
Okay. How do I get my screen on here again?
If you move your cursor to the bottom, there's a green arrow that says share screen.
Gotcha. All right. So here we go. So these, as far as I can tell, are the most recent Lucchese toe styles. And you can see, again, as we described, you've got J toe, R toe, right? Those seem to be pretty consistent across styles. But then you have a couple of other ones like an S5 or a 7 that have that snip, right? A 10, the kind of full round that you see, a K, maybe approaching a French toe shape. And then, you know, kind of different styles within those. But they're all kind of spelled out within the Lucchese line and how they number everything inside the boot. Probably one of the few makers that kind of spell out what kind of toe and heel you're getting with the specific heel and toe.
Yeah.
And they have more than this too, don't they? Where's their Q toe? Don't they have a Q toe too?
So this is what I keep
Okay.
as far as what I found in recent styles. I'm sure there have probably been some updates since then, but in terms of Lucchese, this is what I've seen, and it seems to be pretty consistent with what I've seen from the style numbers.
Can you put that back up there?
Sure. Sorry.
That's okay. I was noticing that W toe from Hondo looks like they're calling it like a Fowler toe.
Or their 10.
Or the 10.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
the difference between the Fowler and the 10 here, and they both remind me of the W.
Yeah.
And it seems like, this was something that I didn't, until I started looking into toes, I didn't understand that you could also have a toe shape that had a separate outsole shape. So you could have a J toe with a snip outsole.
Right.
So, you know, combining some of the toe
where the sole is actually squared off right at the front.
Right. So Fowler and 10 appear to be similar in shape, except for the outsole is wider and maybe more of a work construction boot.
Yeah. The 10 is a double welt stitch, and then it's a crepe sole with a leather mid.
Yep.
So the 7-toe is a very popular style, not just from Lucchese, but most brands make something similar to this. And Mark Dotson in chat brought up the Dubai toe. And from what I mean, and to me, it's very similar to the 7-toe, except it's usually more upswept, or I think, Phil, did you call that like a spring? Is that what you called it?
That's one way to say it. There's,
Yeah.
there are usually like 3 ways to say the same thing. And
Right. Yeah. I mean, am I
To me-
correct in that? To you guys?
That's
Does that
how I
sound
would.
about right?
Yeah, that's what I would say
Yeah.
too.
To me,
Okay.
it looks kind of more like the X or Y. It's kind of like a combination of that. And then, like you said, I mean, this is the Tony Lama chart that I keep. And it's kind of pointed, but not quite a J. It's more upswept like an X from the traditional Tony Lama line. I would say somewhere between the two. I'm a big J-toe fan, but that toe itself seems to be a little bit tighter.
Wow, look at that 38 heel. That's serious.
Yeah, it
You know,
is.
they call that either a fashion heel or a riding heel, depending on the purpose. I mean, I've seen both used kind of interchangeably. With the spur edge, that 38 heel would be more of a riding heel.
Yeah.
The 43 heel would probably be more of a fashion heel without the spur edge for me. Depending on, I can't wear anything on the bottom row. It's a little nuts for me. I've had to get heels changed on some custom boots that I've bought down to I'm pretty good in the 3 heel, 4 heel range, 5, 6, and then 38 and 43 are a little bit of a runway model thing for me. I can't do that.
Yeah. I'd probably try the 57, but
Yep.
the other ones are a little extreme.
Yeah. So really, again, here, like Phil mentioned, right, you've got a very small group of consistent terminology. That's the R toe, the J toe, and then between those, right, you've got some consistency with Lucchese. And then here's the Justin styles we talked about a little bit earlier. They've gone to, this is newer Justin, right? They've gone to the similar terminology, but different numbers, right? So medium round, narrow round, but it's all based off of a different system that they used to be.
Yeah, right.
Bill, can you explain the Fowler? Why is it called a Fowler toe?
So I would have no idea.
Okay, I've seen other, like maybe one other company call that kind of toe a Fowler, or some other sort of Fowler terms.
I wonder if it's adopted from a different kind of footwear, where maybe
could be.
Who knows?
So the other one that I
Sorry.
could bring up again is kind of the newer Nakona. Again, we've moved away from a lot of the abject terminology that may not necessarily mean anything anymore to kind of needle toe, round toe, square toe. These are all kind of things that we all recognize, but I think a lot of us, like for a 7, it might be more commonly accepted to say French toe, for a lot of the vintage collectors, for a lot of the folks that have been in the business for a little while. It's not a, less wide square toe, right? It's a French toe.
Yeah, I would totally agree. I mean, it's even rounded on the front like a French toe.
Right. So this is the current Nakona toe chart. Obviously, this has changed significantly from the vintage Nakona era. So you have these, what you might have referred to as the W toe, right? The extra round.
Mm-hmm.
And these are options probably for custom making, but I don't see these probably being used a lot unless they're part of this roper kind of package.
Well, this is one of my favorite toe charts that we've seen so far. I'm kind of surprised to see sometimes the other brands how they do their toe charts. What I like about this is that they're giving you the same vamp. It's just saying here's the same skin in all the toes.
Yeah.
These ones where it's a hodgepodge of different leathers, I mean, I don't want to sound mean here, but you get lost. You can't really
Yeah.
appreciate what it is because you're looking at completely different styles. But here, they did it
Yeah.
well.
I
like
totally agree.
Absolutely. I mean, that's kind of a nuance that you probably notice as a maker that the rest of us kind of go, oh God, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Something that I hadn't even been apprised to until you mentioned it, but absolutely, you got to see the same skin, the same type of leather in the same picture. So yeah, that's a great point.
You can get carried away with, oh, I like that style, and then you stop.
I like an alligator more than an ostrich, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the last one is kind of the newer Acme, so Dan Post, Laredo. These are the common terminologies that I see used on a day-to-day basis, right? J, snip, R, round, square, everything except for the French. And then, you kind of have some of these heels. This is your basic bitch heel and toe analogy, if you will. So it's kind of laid out for everybody in terms of the titles you would use.
Yeah.
This is what I like the best. I mean, this, like when I try to make the videos and say what toe it is, it's basically like this. The J, the round, the R, like the square, because people can't keep track of all of the different names.
Exactly. One thing that I will add is, and I mean, it may not be the same with you guys, but that Lucchese 7-toe, that's what I hear it referred to more often than not, regardless of brand, is it's a 7-toe.
Yep. That narrow square look. Los Altos adopted that too as their narrow square.
I know number. Blackjack calls it a V-toe.
Mm-hmm.
But kind of the more I see, different boot styles and current boot styles, certainly see a lot of square toe. That's great. But I do see a lot of people adopting, more of that streamlined look. And especially with, Tekabas and current marketing, you have a lot of pointed kind of J toe, R toe, kind of a narrower, streamlined look. And I'm a fan of that. I mean, that's nearly everything I wear. Yeah. I do wear a couple of narrow, square, and, maybe some rounder ones, but not very many.
Yeah. I mean, I like all the toe shapes pretty much, but the ones that I wear, I mean, I have several wide square toes, but almost everything that I wear is square in some form or fashion. And that's mainly just because they look the best on my feet, not, I mean, I love medium round toes as well, but some of them just, I don't know. I just look down and it doesn't do it for me sometimes. So, and I love French toe as well, but again, that's kind of in the square toe family.
Is that what everybody can agree on? Like French toe is great no matter what, whether you're a square toe guy or you're a round toe guy, you got to have a French toe.
Yeah. I think because it's like right in between,
Right.
Yeah. I think it's the perfect balance between the two.
Well, here's the funny thing. I don't think you could have a wide square toe and feel you're in a dress boot, but you certainly feel in a dress boot when your square gets a little bit more.
I agree.
And it's correct me if I'm wrong, but the modern square seems very much like the French toe. It's just a little bit wider. Like it seems exactly the same.
Yeah, I agree. A little wider and a little more boxy right on the nose of it, not quite.
I love what Phil says there. I love you just narrow it a little bit and you start getting a little bit dressier, right?
Yeah.
So I'm in a suit or dress pants or khakis or something every day. And everything that I put on, is a little bit rounder, a little bit more streamlined. it feels right with a suit
Yeah.
or a jacket, right? I mean, even a pair of jeans and a suit jacket is fine. But if you put a pair of square toes on, I almost want to go in with a jeans and t-shirt kind of look, I mean, it's a little bit less dressed up.
Yeah.
See, I'll wear exotic wide square toes with jeans. Like if we're going out to a fairly nice dinner, I might wear jeans and a sport coat, and I'll wear a wide square toe with that. But if it's a suit, it's going to be like a French toe, if I'm going real dressy.
Yep.
But part of that too is being in Texas. I mean, wide square toe is king here. I mean, Phil,
Oh yeah, it is.
So
yeah, we traveled territory last week where people are a lot more friendly to the round toe. There's a big presence of the wide square toe, but a good balance of like your U toe, not the R toe, your wider round one, and then your square, your regular wide square. And that's not the topic today, but also single wet stitch, which can look well with a broad square toe, by the way, a single wet.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's germane to the topic, anyway, because what I discovered when I first started researching toes is the toe can change based on the outsole, and that relates to the stitch. So you have some that will consider a J snip, right? So you have a J toe with a snipped outsole, which changes kind of the overall look of the boot, as opposed to a snip toe. So that causes some confusion in folks that want to call a snip toe without having kind of a small squared off front, a snip toe, but it doesn't really fit the description.
Yep, I got a pair of J Chisholms like that.
I'm going to throw one at you guys. What about the X toe, double X, triple X? I mean, I know we all know that's the extremely pointed, long boot, but how do you know if you're looking at a double X versus a triple X? Just go by whatever they told you when you bought them.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'll tell you just from buying older boots, when I bought an X toe, it seemed very much like a narrow toe boot. A triple X I have not seen in a vintage pair. I know Tony Lama used to use X, triple X, and I think a triple X was very mild to Tony Lama compared to what we see today with some of these styles where you have these elongated points.
Yeah.
I think a triple X back in the day would probably be like a needle toe in today's terminology, whereas today you could see a triple X that has a 3-inch long toe that you don't necessarily want anything to do with.
Right.
Or maybe you do.
You could. That's fine.
Yeah. Oh man, I had something I wanted to say and I totally forgot about it. All right, Cecil, I know you like to talk. Come up with something.
Hey, so I was going to ask, what is everybody wearing today? We always talk about what the boot of the day is. So what has everybody got on?
I had my Nakonas on with the U-toe.
That's a very good pair. Do you know what year those are?
I think they're early 2000s.
Yeah.
The codes on the inside don't really help me at all, I don't think.
That's a really good catch there.
I had the Hondo 2645s.
Nice.
Yeah,
just for the occasion.
Nobody's ever interested in the same pair that I've already showed on the stream like 6 times, my JB Hills. So I brought up these Hornback Lizard Justin, really thick, beautiful figure, kind of early 80s bone. Yep. And they've got a beautiful toe.
Are they like a bone color?
Yeah, bone color and a gray upper.
Wow.
Kind of an interesting mix.
Yeah, that's cool.
But something that I've kept for a little while. I want to wear them, but they don't fit because I'm, you know, just shy of an inch. away
Oh
from-
no.
Well,
And
I'm,
it's still in your-
I'm wearing our current bestseller, which is the 1758. You guys have already heard of it. So it's
Oh, look at that.
yeah.
well, it's our square toe. Single welt stitch makes it look a lot more palpable.
Yeah.
I love that upper, that cross stitch on the upper that kind of
Yeah.
makes it geometrically.
Let's show off there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's great.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's what I wanted.
What is different with the heel counter? It's like a dark black. Like, is it a different leather or?
We have let me take the boot off so I don't have to subject.
You don't have to
Yoga.
do yoga to.
Yeah, cowboy boots yoga.
So this is a chocolate bull hide. See that nice grain on there?
Oh yeah.
The heel counter has chocolate bull hide, and then this is your rough out,
Yeah.
and there's your spur heel.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the thing we haven't mentioned in the whole conversation: the spur ledge,
Yeah.
and just the rest. So,
I love the white piping too.
Yep.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
there you
It
go.
sets it off. That's
The
what I was going to
buckaroo
mention a
pulls.
second ago.
Yeah. Super
Is
hot.
the double stitch welt, like you said, Jeremiah, is really just for looks more than anything. One thing I do really like though is, and I've seen it on a lot of custom boots, where the welt will be that wide but only a single stitch instead of the double stitch.
Mhm.
And I think that's really sharp looking.
One of the things I think I've seen a lot more on Hondo than I think I've seen on a lot of other boots. I'm not sure if you guys pioneered it or not, kind of learned on the fly, but that buckaroo pull along with the pull on the side that you have with that extra high upper,
Mhm.
that is
The pull hole?
yeah. Oh,
The pull holes?
absolutely.
Yeah.
For anybody that has ever abused their pulls, the buckaroo is a lifesaver to have in
Yeah.
the kind of the overall upper, the high upper like that. Great
Yeah.
crushed green on that too, by the way.
Oh, yeah. This one is starting to trend big time for us. The 2026.
Every store had that we visited. And if
That's
they
an
didn't have
awesome
it, they
boot.
bought it.
Yeah.
Like that's huge out west right now.
That's
In the
awesome
territory.
looking.
And it's got the toe 5, our U toe.
Yeah, that's a
And
great looking boot.
We've never stopped selling that. Kind of when everyone walked away from it, we were still getting lots of calls for it. So this is trending for us really big. It's a contender, but I see the 1758 keeping its top position. For a
Yeah.
while.
That one's got the double leather outsole too. So it's got 2 layers.
Yeah, this one's got a leather midsole so that you can justifiably call it a double leather sole. So technically it's not, because it's not 2 soles that are both 10 irons, but it does have, it's a leather midsole essentially, but we
Yeah.
love calling it double leather sole.
That's awesome. That's a great looking boot. I love green's my favorite color, so the tops on those are really speaking to me.
Well, then maybe this is what we're going to have to review next, huh?
Maybe
That's what I'm
so.
talking about.
Dude, that'll get you on track with a decent toe there, Nick.
Yeah, yeah.
So what's your feelings, Phil, on the whole square toe thing? Are you
I
are
said
you wearing it yourself? So
I'm wearing it myself because I'm also the tester for all the boots that we make. So right now I get into like 6-month kicks trying to wear the same boot every day. People ask me, how many boots do you have? The answer is 1 at a time, or
Yeah.
2. I need to drive them to the ground, and so basically we adopted the wide square reluctantly. I said that before, because you let personal opinions get in the way, but the business decision undoubtedly is you have to make it.
Yeah.
You have to make it. And I like to poke fun at it, at the beginning, it was like orthopedic shoes or something, but
Yeah.
that's in the past now.
Yeah.
We're all good with it.
Yeah.
But if you really want to talk about elegance and beauty, we saw it in the Caymans that you showed us, is the Arto. I mean, look at that's just gorgeous.
Yeah. I mean, to me, that's the classic look, and it's probably my favorite toe out there.
Right. Beautiful.
And it's just, I mean, it just looks fantastic.
We
Yeah.
didn't see very many though
No, no one buys
on the road. I didn't even think about it. Very
Mhm.
little R toes at all.
Nobody buys it. I wish it made a comeback. They
Yeah.
have
When
all
you
the
think about a cowboy boot, you have imagined either a J toe or an R toe.
Yeah.
And I mean, personally,
Yeah.
I'm a J toe guy, right? But the R toe, absolutely, that's the classic cow look.
Yeah.
You can't stop looking at it. I mean, look, it's just gorgeous. right?
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah, you're right. If you say the word cowboy boot, that's what pops in your mind.
And it's super comfortable.
Yeah.
There's no like crowding your toes. Somehow it just
Yeah.
looks.
Yeah.
Your BNVs are a medium rounds, right?
No, BMVs are J toe.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yep.
okay.
So you can see how it's just a little bit more pointed there with the J toe. And this one here is an R toe. It's
Okay.
Tony Lama 6250.
The way they finished the sole threw me off. And I thought your BNVs were medium rounds. Yeah.
These are kind of maybe an R, maybe more of a medium round, but they're Tony Lama elephant that I wear to work all the time. Some of the most comfortable
Okay.
boots. They're elephant ear,
Wow,
sewn
yeah.
in patchwork. Kind of got the toe cap and everything.
Oh, cool.
There.
They're gonna
Awesome.
Yeah. I love these. I wear these all the time.
I don't think I've ever seen anything like that.
So we have another boot that's trending, and I'm not turning this into a Hondo commercial. It's just because it's a toe you haven't seen.
Okay.
So we got this beautiful boot, this black rough out with this
Yeah.
interesting ash brown sort of top. This one's trending for us, but this is our toe 15. This is recent. The footprint is the wide square, our regular 12 toe, but we have kind of a cutter toe
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
to that. So it's just as broad as our 12, as our wide square, but we kind of made this toe by mistake, trying to make that cutter toe that everyone has. And we left it way too damn wide. And now we're the only one in the market with it, just out of, just a mistake. But
Yeah.
it's this boot is an NRS special. They've sold the heck out of it just in the last 12 months. It's that new. And so that we kind of stumbled upon this toe. And so it's kind of no one out there really has it.
cool.
Yeah.
What's the model of that Hondo?
Oh, this model is 2068. 2068. We wouldn't have seen it in the territory where we were. It's too much of a Texas boot. In the territory that Jeremiah and I traveled, sometimes they see a boot, they say that's a Texas boot, and they aggressively throw it out the window. And the 1758s, that's what they do with it. It's tough to sell it in that territory. And some people don't want to admit that they love it just because first they say it's a Texas boot, and then the women are the ones that said they liked it. The men never admitted it.
Yeah. I think to the degree you can kind of turn the corners on that square so it's not like a absolute
Yes.
corner cutting square, you can get a lot of style out of something that could be maybe considered a work boot, but you could put into a dress vibe if you have a little bit less kind of sharp corners on it. I'm a fan of. I have some Justin kind of narrow square toe, and I'll wear those to work any day.
Yeah. I love these 2645s. I think that's the 11 toe.
11. That's our next.
Where it's just a little bit more narrow.
Yeah.
But still the square look.
Yeah, I got me a pair of that toe just recently, and I can't stop wearing it. It's just so comfortable.
Yeah.
I think that's my favorite one that you brought with you was that
Thank you.
one, the steer with the 11 toe.
I do like it more than the wide square one because I like snug, and I feel my toes a little more collected by that one.
Yeah.
Next to the widest that we have.
Yeah, I would agree. I don't know. It's super comfortable, and I just like the looks of it a lot.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
Yeah.
Really liking it.
I'm glad. That makes me happy. Makes me very happy.
How about the Snip Toe. What do you guys feel about that and the name? Because when you say Snip Toe, a lot of people will get upset that you're calling it a snip toe and not a box toe or something like that.
Yeah, that's a 1-inch box toe or whatever.
Something like that. Where do you guys stand on the quote unquote snip toe?
I call it a snip toe just because box toe to me could mean so many different, I mean, technically a Lucchese 7-toe would be a box toe as well, or like Phil called it, a cutter toe is another name for that you hear. So I mean, I just call it a snip toe. I think that's
everything I've seen in official canon is snip toe.
Yep.
I haven't seen box toe or anything from all the different companies I've looked at, vintage and current. Snip toe seems to be the accepted canon, for that type of toe. I love it. I have a pair of Dan Post Bullfrog. I got one of my first pairs that are snip toe. Unfortunately, right, you got the narrow toe box situation. So with somebody who has a wider foot, when you look at a snip toe boot, you're going to have to look at a sizing type situation. I think I mentioned this before on here where, especially in a vintage pair where you might have a smaller sizing, if you're looking at snip toe, might want to size up, might want to size a half size or an extra E.
Yeah.
Find it.
And it's weird because some companies do a really good job of taking that into account, and sizing that boot. Whereas like if you wear an 11 in a medium round, you're going to wear an 11 in a snip toe, but sometimes it doesn't work out that way. Like Cecil says, sometimes you may have to size up a half size or so.
Yeah. I mean, modern companies tend to take things kind of more into account as far as width is concerned, but the toe box is still going to restrict the end of your foot, right? So your foot only gets wider as it goes out.
Yeah.
So when you look at a double E pair of boots, it's built to consider the fact that your toes will continue to broaden, right? And so then you kind of come to that point, cut it off. You got to pull the leather down, kind of pull it into that shape, and that's going to give you a little bit less room than you will have in a wider square toe French toe. That's why I think a lot of people like French toe in a vintage, because it gives you a little bit more room in the toe box.
As far as like sizing issues like that go, this just popped in my head, but something that I've run into recently from the same brand where I had a wide square toe, which kind of had the 11-inch shaft, and it's kind of a Stockman boot where the shaft's a little bit wider, and I wore an 11, no problem, it fit perfect. And then I got their medium round toe boot, and the shafts are, I think it's a 12-inch shaft, but they're quite a bit more narrow. And I actually had to go up to an 11.5 just because the instep portion was so much tighter on my foot. It's like, when they made the shaft so much more narrow, they didn't kind of make that transition very well. And I had to size up a half size just because of that.
So guys, here's what I can bring into the conversation if you want to hear something controversial.
Yes, definitely.
Yes, controversy. That's what we're about.
So, what is the role of plastic in a well-made boot, you guys? We can talk about the toe and we can talk about the heel. So that's a shocker coming from me, right? Well, you all know that our heel rand is plastic.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a piece of plastic in a Hondo. It's the heel rand. Why do you do a heel rand? It's because if you leave the leather exposed, and some brands do, it's the opposite side of the finished leather. It's the rough out of the sole.
Right.
So you kind of don't want to do that sometimes. Some people do a leather rand. Some people do a plastic rand. It really boils down just to how much stress do you want your boot to take here in this spot, because you do need to finish the rough out of the leather with something, either a leather rand or a plastic rand. Now, what role does plastic have in a toe box? You were talking about snip toe, and very often the only way to make a snip toe is your entire toe box is a plastic shell. Kind of the same flimsy plastic you use on the rand, you use on the toe box, because that really sharply defined snip toe, that could take a dent if it wasn't something that's going to rebound like plastic. So Hondo hasn't made a snip toe. I stand corrected. For men, we haven't made a snip toe since last century, I think. But in women's, we do some snip toes. You have to use a plastic heel cap in order for that to always stay in that particular shape.
Gotcha.
So full disclaimer, guys.
Yeah.
There is a role for plastic even in the most all leather boots. You could still avoid it altogether. Your toe box could be leather and your rand could be leather, but there is an argument for using the plastic.
Let me ask you this: for people that wear Spurs, is the plastic rand, is that going to be more durable if you got a spur kind of resting on that?
The one that takes all hell.
Yeah.
The plastic is the one that takes the beating.
Yeah.
And it's also not going to last forever. You guys may have some of your boots where maybe on the escalator, you like the piece of the escalator got the back of your heel, and then you have this dent in the plastic rand also. So it's not perfect, but it's definitely the one that takes hell. The leather rand, even when it's finished with a leather rand, is more susceptible.
Yeah. I know a lot of people argue about that. You know, what's the, I don't know if correct's the right word. They argue over what's better, the leather or the plastic. But
if it was custom made, I wouldn't take a plastic rand. I would just say, hey, if I'm paying $1,000, then I want it made like they were in 1920,
right?
Something like that. But if it's basically a high-end factory boot, you're gonna be fine with a plastic. It's made for utility.
Yeah, that's good to know.
Yeah, and so you heard it here. Full disclaimer.
Awesome.
There is a touch of plastic in Hondo boots. So
I love it.
It's the heel rand. None of our toes take a plastic heel cap because we don't do snip toes.
Yeah.
Do you use the leather for the toes or the Silastic?
It's the Silastic.
Mm-hmm.
So you got me there again. Touche.
Well, most everybody is using Silastic now anyways.
Yeah.
And it's just evolving with the times. It's not about using inferior materials. It's about using what material makes the most sense for the purpose, right? So how many people are using Spurs nowadays, right? So, you know, I think a lot of us there are going to be great with the way that things are built nowadays.
So guys, you cannot accept Silastic on your heel counter. You just can't do that because it's a matter of durability. It's a matter of support. Things that kind of thing over time gets looser and looser and looser. And there goes the support, the entire support for your foot. But the heel cap, there's no support question there. There's no support issue there at all.
Yeah, I had a heel counter that I had to recently repair, and they were able to, on a pair of Laramie anteaters, they were able to remove the heel counter, reshape it, put it back in the boot, and have a structural integrity back in it from a, you know, mid 70s, early 80s boot.
Laramie, another El Paso boot from the past. There's the El Paso crowd knows how to put together a good cowboy boot. It's call it El Paso know-how.
This is one of my favorite pairs. These are my personal Laramies.
Whoa!
Got that mule ear. They used to do this kind of stamped leather front, and got nice and wide for the calves. But, this is a jeans inside the boot wear right there.
That is vintage right there.
Yeah,
that's awesome boot. Hey Phil, I'm just watching the chat right now, and Mark Dodson wants to know what Silastic is. I'm wondering if you could give him a definition from the boot owner perspective.
So to begin with, heel cap, you guys, you're putting this between the vamp and the lining, and then you last the 3 layers all together: the vamp, the lining, and the toe box in there. And you're doing that while it's moist. So an all leather boot, the traditional way, it gets drenched in a bucket from toe to the top here. Drenched in a bucket so you don't have any water stains. But the point of drenching it is so that you can hand blast it and it just, you know, pulls down like butter. So Silastic, you guys, is a fabric, but it is permeated with some kind of chemical. I don't know what it is. So that when you buy a Silastic toe box, it's like a flat, rigid fabric. It's been treated with this chemical, so it's rigid. But when you're lasting, you activate it. You dip it in some other chemical that you buy for that purpose, and it activates all of that chemical that the fabric comes permeated in. And your heel cap is shaped about kind of like that, okay? And when it's activated, it's totally workable. It becomes soft. So you lay it on your liner, and then you bring over your vamp, and then you last the whole thing. And then that activation evaporates, it dries up, and then it's rigid. It's rigid like you see it right there. I could press down on this really hard, and it's rigid. So Silastic, again, is a fabric that gets activated with the chemical. It's workable just for a few minutes, and then it hardens again. Let's just say it hardens overnight. So pretty much any boot, the way it was made in 1970, already employed Silastic, really nice and solid. Before, people were using a thin piece of kind of a very skived, very thin piece of sole leather here. Real similar to what you use on your heel counters if you're still using leather heel counters. And then that was all blasted together. And that old heel cap, I mean, it's the way boots were made for all of history, but Silastic provided some advantages over that. Now, some people, instead of a leather heel cap, use Silastic here too. When you use Silastic, instead of I'm sorry, I meant to say heel counter. So when people use Silastic in the heel counter, instead of a authentic leather heel counter, what it does is it forms really nicely to the last. The finish is really, really nice. It just mimics the last perfectly, like this toe mimics the last perfectly because that's Silastic. But here in the heel cap, there's so much stress and so much of your weight here. This has almost everything. This provides almost everything that you could call support to your boot. So the Silastic, after a while, it begins to wear, it begins to soften, and it begins to wear, and your foot might start to kind of force this down, you know, kind of like either come this way or come that way, depending on how what's the tone? Pronate? I probably got that wrong.
Yeah.
But a firm heel counter is going to keep you from going left or right, from falling in or falling out. And a Silastic heel counter will not provide that support. Now, a lot of every boot maker that does the Silastic heel counter, I keep saying heel cap, I mean heel counter, they line it with a thin piece of leather that looks exactly like a leather heel counter, but that's just for cosmetics. Behind that is the Silastic heel counter and then the vamp leather outside. So you really got to watch for that. And I mean, you kind of never really know what you're buying because the cosmetics can really hide that Silastic heel counter.
What about the squeeze test on the heel? Is there any way to tell the Silastic from the leather?
So what everyone should do when they pick up a pair of boots is squeeze this with all of your strength, all of it. This should be rock hard, really. And a leather heel counter will give that to you because it's got about 6 irons of leather in there in the thickest part. It's skived at the ends. It's skived here because that's the only way it can fold over as well.
Mm-hmm.
And skived down here because it's the only way it can last. But right in the center right here, it's got a good like 6 irons of leather. And so if you hold that and it's really, really hard, you still don't know if it's temporary because they use some kind of application but you're at least in safer grounds.
Yeah.
And when you ask a store clerk, real tough for them to really know what's in there. So
Yes.
you really kind of want to research what your boot brand is known for and what they claim is in their boots.
It kind of is like a portmanteau of silicone and plastic. So Silastic, right? It's silicone polymers that are combined. Yep.
You're probably right. When it comes to telling you much about the synthetic materials or even the leathers, Jeremiah knows this. Sometimes I should know more than I really do about how leathers get tanned and why something's called retan and all that good stuff. Sometimes I get my pointers from watching your videos.
Yeah. All of us do.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, right?
So everybody go watch Jeremiah's videos. You want to learn something. All right. Well, guys, I think that's probably a good ending point for us. I want to thank everybody in chat for joining us. I want to thank Phil, Nate, and Jeremiah for joining me. I really appreciate it, guys. And we will catch y'all on the next one.
Sounds great.
Big announcement for me in a couple of weeks, guys. So just hang on.
Awesome. Can't wait. Phil, it was awesome to see you here.
Yeah, great seeing you.
Yep.
Of course. We'll have to get together again soon.
Absolutely.